If you're looking for pound the best home health and beauty fragrance products, you need to go to ashkickin.com.
Hi, I'm Angie and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about this Tank beef.
Yo, I'm about to catch this plane in a few minutes, but Anthony, get up with your man Eddie and Barry Hearn and tell them to check their email. I got something special for you. And by the way, all the money's in the bag, so I expect you'll be a man of your word.
Okay, I'll take 50 million up front. If that's the case, Wilder's team, bring me 50 million up front and we'll take the fight.
I'll see you soon then.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Boy, oh boy, I tell you. Decisions. That's what Anthony Joshua is saying right now. Do I take the $50 million that I asked Deontay Wilder's team to pay me? Or do I take on Gerald Miller or Povetkin for a lot less money and not fight against Deontay Wilder? These are the decisions that now Anthony Joshua has to make. And trust me, when I say Anthony Joshua has to make the decision, that is the only person who has to make the decision. It's no longer up to Eddie Hearn, because Eddie Hearn just admitted in a recent interview that he did that it's up to Anthony Joshua. He has 7 to 10 days to decide to take the $50 million offer that was proposed to him. I've been telling you guys from day one, when people kept assuming that this was Eddie Hearn doing this, or it was Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua, I was telling you guys from day one, this is not Eddie Hearn deciding what happens when it comes to Anthony possibly fighting against Wilder. This is solely Anthony Joshua making these decisions. Because I told you guys, it was a time, a couple fights back, when Wilder had knocked out, I think it was Areola. He had knocked out someone, and right after that fight, Eddie Hearn, he boldly came out and said, we're ready for that fight. Anthony Joshua will knock out Wilder within 3 rounds. And then shortly after Eddie Hearn said that, Anthony Joshua, he issued a statement, and he said something that was the complete contrary. He was like, look, man, I'm not going to be rushing to this fight. I worked hard to get to this position, and I'm not going to be forced into taking the fight if I'm not ready to take the fight. This is pretty much what Anthony Joshua said. When I heard these inconsistencies when it comes to Anthony Joshua's team, this is when, once again, I knew that this was Anthony Joshua personally feeling he wasn't ready to take the Wilder fight. And now, once again, we hear Eddie Hearn say today, it's up to Joshua if he wants to take the $50 million offer. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and quote and read exactly what promoter Eddie Hearn had to say. Once again, this is what Eddie Hearn had to say, Anthony Joshua's promoter. Quote, I think his preference is Alexander Povetkin for his mandatory. Gerald Miller is the top 5 and Deontay Wilder. They're his 3 main choices, and I expect him to make his mind up in the next 7 to 10 days. He's a smart young man, and the final decision is always made by him. There it is. You heard Eddie Hearn say it. The final decision is always made by him. I told you guys on multiple occasions, especially on the radio show, I said you guys have to understand something. The promoters work for the fighters. The fighters don't really work for the promoters, not when you're on the level of an Anthony Joshua, a Gennady Golovkin, if you will. Fighters that have a bigger name. Now, when you just sign to a big promotional company, then they do have control over you. They have a little bit of leverage and control over you. But once again, once you reach Mayweather status, once you reach Anthony Joshua status, Canelo Alvarez status, Manny Pacquiao status, You pretty much tell your promoter who you're going to fight next. And I can tell you right now, this situation is not making any sense when it comes to Anthony Joshua's position. Anthony Joshua asked for $50 million. You guys heard the clip at the beginning of this video. He said, you give me $50 million and I will fight Deontay Wilder next. Team Wilder obliges Anthony Joshua and agrees to the terms of $50 million paid to Anthony Joshua. Now that Anthony Joshua is getting what he asked for, now he's still thinking about taking the fight, according to his own promoter, Eddie Hearn. You ask for $50 million, they say, okay, here you go. And you say, no, hold on. Let me just think about this for a second. Let me think about if I want $50 million fighting you, or if I don't want $50 million and I'd rather fight against Povetkin or Gerald Big Baby Miller. How is this making any sense, guys? Now you have more of an understanding when they were going back and forth, when Deontay Wilder and Team Wilder, his manager, Shelly Finkel, when they proposed the $50 million offer and they said to Anthony Joshua, all we want you to do is accept the offer. Agree that you will fight Deontay Wilder if you get the $50 million you were asking for. They weren't asking Anthony Joshua to sign a contract. They weren't asking him to blindly sign a contract. They were just asking Anthony Joshua to accept the terms, agree to the $50 million that you requested. Joshua wasn't ready to do this. This is when Eddie Hearn stepped in and he said, look, we're not gonna agree to this $50 million unless we see a contract. But that doesn't make sense because Anthony Joshua already told the public and Deontay Wilder what it would take to make this fight, which was $50 million. So why would you need to see a contract and all this kind of stuff if Team Wilder is already agreeing to give you the $50 million that Anthony Joshua was asking for? Then we had this crazy statement when Eddie Hearn, he said, well, we're going to counter the offer. That makes no sense at all. How can you counter an offer when it was your fighter, Anthony Joshua, who asked for the $50 million? You can't counter an offer when it was a specific request that you proposed. That doesn't make any damn sense. This situation is very similar to when Eddie Hearn, he requested the Deontay Wilder fight Dillian Whyte before he gets a fight against Anthony Joshua. And then same situation, Deontay Wilder, he said, okay, I'll fight Dillian Whyte as long as Anthony Joshua's name is attached to the contract. And then all of a sudden they said, no, we can't guarantee that. So now you have Anthony Joshua asking for $50 million. They say, okay, here's the $50 million. Now can we fight? Now Anthony Joshua's like, oh, you know what? I need 7 to 10 days to think about that. How would you need time to think about this when this is what you asked for? And then you hear Eddie Hearn pretty much implying that there's a very good chance that Anthony Joshua will pick Povetkin over Deontay Wilder. Are UK fans willing and ready to admit that Anthony Joshua, he has a tremendous amount of respect for Deontay Wilder? And that's putting it mildly. Anthony Joshua, he feels that Deontay Wilder is hands down the most dangerous opponent that he will ever get in the ring with. For you to ask for $50 million and get exactly what you asked for, and you still have to think about taking the fight, we know what time it is. We know what time it is. So I'm telling you guys right now, this will be a bad look for Anthony Joshua if he turns down his own requests. That would be a bad look for Anthony Joshua, man. And it's getting to the point to where even UK fans, they're going to start saying, hey, Anthony, we done did everything we could do to defend you. But now You're making it impossible for us to defend your actions. That's what's going to happen eventually, guys. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 7 to 10 days. That's all I got for